Hello guys, I'm International Master Andrei Ostrovsky and this is Learn from Chess Blitz, a live show that gives you an opportunity to learn something new about chess while playing against me. If you are for the first time here, I'm playing on leadchess.org, so just go there, find me by nickname Ostrovsky and challenge me for a 5-minute game or probably 3+2. So the main idea of this show is to make you learn something new, so I do my best to explain the things. That's why I need slightly more time than usually. Usually I prefer playing 3-minute games, but for this show I prefer 5-minute or 3+2. Alright, I wanted to say a big thank you for the last week, because exactly 1 week ago you guys helped me become 1K plus YouTuber. So now I have more than 1,000 subscribers. Many thanks for this. It's probably not the greatest achievement ever, but in any case, it is very pleasant and your help is really appreciated. As for new features, by the way, that became unlocked after going to this 1,000 subscribers, you probably can notice the dollar sign if you watch this on YouTube somewhere where you type your messages and chat. So from now on, you can actually support me financially right during the broadcast. So it is called a super chat. You probably know this feature. It is quite new for my show, for my broadcast. So now, if you want, of course, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, you can support me financially right during the live broadcast. Okay. Hello guys, I can see already some people here in live chat. Very nice that you are here. I'm happy that you continue following my shows. That's really nice. And I already have some challenges, so let's keep playing and explaining the things. So our topic today is Hypermodern center, which means that I will try control the center with mainly pieces, and will probably delay occupying the center with my pawns. Okay, so here we go. The first challenge was from Kramnik students, so I will accept this challenge. Let's see how it works, how it goes. Okay, I'm playing with white, which gives me a lot of different possibilities to occupy the center with pawns, but at the same time, I'm more or less free to control the center with my pieces, so I can easily delay occupying the center with pawns. So let's start with something more or less natural with the knight f3. The question, would you play low-rated player 2? Of course, so just challenge me for a game and wait for your turn. I'm playing just against each and other. Knight f3, knight f6. So white controls e5, d4, black controls d5, e4. So how to keep it hyper modern? There are different opportunities. I will try b3 in this game. e6 and bishop to b2. And now what do we have? Well, we have Queen's Indian defense reversed. So I'm playing with white pieces. The only difference is that the color of pieces is different, and actually I have extra tempo. As for the rest, it is just the same. So usually in such a situation, it is a good idea to undermine the center with the c4 pawn. We have to understand if we have enough pieces controlling d4 square, because if after c4 opponent plays something like d4, it might be annoying for the bishop b2. But in this situation, as we may notice, d4 is protected enough. So I think I can afford playing c4. Knight to c6, and now black is ready to play d4. So what to do in this situation? Of course, I can try d to d4, but it's not in the spirit really of this setup. So instead I will take on d5. And now I can play d4, obviously. I can also try bishop to b5, I think. Just intending to play knight e5 maybe, and preparing castling. maybe even intending to grab on c6, I don't know, with future attack against c5. So let's try bishop to b5. And I also fight for this d4 square additional, as we may notice, so black doesn't have a chance to play d4, at least right now. So bishop e7, okay, castles probably. Probably castles right now, or knight to e5, I don't know. Knight to e5 looks also very, very promising. Let's try knight to e5, attacking c6. Queen to c7. Protecting the knight. Very natural approach. And now I can probably try this. Knight takes c6 and bishop goes back. So the point is that usually to damage the pawn structure there, you need to sacrifice your bishop. So just to give up your bishop to exchange it for the knight. In this particular case, I managed to do the same, but my bishop is still on the board, which is quite nice. So I don't have this typical disadvantage, and my opponent doesn't have this typical advantage. I mean, the pair of bishops. And now I want to try attacking this c5 pawn, which became quite vulnerable after black captured on c6 with the pawn. So my next play can be connected with rook to c1, maybe bishop to a3, if it will be needed, just to attack c5. And I think black will have some problems finding enough pieces to protect this pawn. Because if knight, for example, goes to e4 square, I can play d2, d3, and just kick this knight back to f6, or maybe d6, but on d6 it will actually limit the own bishop and c5 will be hanging. Okay, rook to b8, most likely intending to play c4. At the moment my bishop is protected, so probably I can continue with the rook c1. I can't see a big problem with this right now. So my knight on a4 is also protected, even overprotected. My queen also takes part in this defense. So if I take on c4, my knight is still protected, and if black attacks my knight queen a5, it's not really an attack. Okay, so let's play rook to c1 and see what is going on there. Black can of course play something like knight to d7, but then I will continue with my plan. I will play bishop to a3, I think. Another interesting idea could be just to play d4, d2, d4. So at first glance it is strange because I kind of exchange this weakened pawn. On the other hand, I will have the play against c6 pawn, which is also weak. So if I play d4 right now, I'm not sure about c takes d4, bishop takes d4 and c5. What is going on there? It's unclear to me. So maybe it still makes sense to start with this move. Just attacking c5 one more time. Bishop to d6, attacking h2. Okay. So let's just protect it, I guess. But which way? Which could be more solid? H3 or g3? If h3, then rook e6, rook g6 with a counterplay. So let's try g3. It feels like slightly more solid defense of the king. Now I think I can take on c5. I can also try the following. Just d4. And if cd4, I just take the bishop, which is potentially quite annoying. But rook g6. Okay. Maybe I should attack the rook. And only now I should take on c5. But which way? Probably with the pawn is okay. Let's take with the bishop. This also looks quite good. Only 40 seconds on the clock. That's a problem, of course. I can miss something. Playing fast at this stage. But right now it looks pretty good. Okay, let's exchange this bishop. This is potentially the most dangerous piece, I believe. Okay. Oh, thank you for additional time. That was fantastic. Super generous. Thanks a lot. Now I think I will feel much more comfortable. G6. Okay, but now I think I have no problems with converting it. So I'll just play bishop f1, getting rid of that bishop. And, well, let's simply bring the rook to c1 and continue with exerting pressure on c6. It will be not that simple to convert it, in fact, because this pawn is perfectly protected. So maybe I should try something connected with the d5 pawn, in fact. I mean, playing something like b4, b5, and get into d5 pawn. That is an interesting play. And this bishop on g2 is very important in the sense of protecting my king. So now rook to c7 looks pretty much straightforward and strong. And queen to b4, just spinning that rook. And it should be lost. Yeah. I definitely win a minor piece or something and it's over. Okay, so let's have a look what happened in this game. So, as I said during the game, we achieved a position just like in Queen's Indian defense, but reversed. And I'm not sure that c4 was the best possible move here. Of course, it's possible to delay this d4, I guess, just playing bishop e2. And then if knight goes to c6, we just castle. And at some point, we occupy e5 square with the knight. So it's a typical play here. We can play d3. Knight from b1 goes to d2. And then only when white is ready, he plays something like c4 or e4, undermining the center. So there is a comment in chat about rook takes g2 on the 19th move. So we will get to that moment. Just be patient. After c4, knight to c6, cd5, ed5, and bishop to b5. I guess it's interesting to try bishop to d7 move. So it doesn't look very attractive, but in this case at least there is no damage to the pawn structure made. It can be also possible that it's slightly more active just to bring the bishop to d6 right now. Controlling e5 square additionally and making castling as quick as possible. So I don't like bishop e7 move, in fact, because in any case, after that, the bishop should be improved somehow, so the bishop should go somewhere else. So it is just a passive position by default. After knight e5, queen to c7, knight to c6, bc6, and bishop e2, a true black's main plan is to counterattack. On the king side, to counterattack in the center, and so forth. So castling was correct, castling here. Maybe it was much more interesting to start with the bishop d6 here. Just attacking h2 forced me to make a decision, because if I play h3, it becomes a nice hook for your pieces. So later on, you can probably try something against this pawn, right? If I play g3, you just put your bishop on h3 with the help of one move, not making two moves. But potentially, problem can be based on this bishop takes f6 move, which I'm not sure is a great idea. But if bishop takes h2, king to h1, and g takes f6, at first glance it looks like I have this g3 move, and bishop on h2 is trapped. So something like queen e5 doesn't really help, because I can play d4, for example, and h5 square is controlled, so queen can't get to h5, so I will take this bishop next move, and feels like okay for white. But probably you can just avoid taking on h2. Probably you can just play g takes f6, which is at first glance very bad in the sense of pawn structure, because now black has doubled pawns on the king side, black has doubled pawns on the queen side. But what happens here, black has a pair of bishops now, after all, and position is quite open, so there will be definitely some counterplay. And my knight is far away from getting to, let's say, some interesting outposts like f5 or h5. So I have a feeling that this is interesting for black at very least. At very least, it is interesting. So bishop d6 deserved attention, but what black played, in my opinion, was also quite okay. So bishop f5, knight to c3, and now rook to e8. Maybe that was just a waste of time a bit, but who knows? In any case, rook then goes to e6 and joins the counter attack, so maybe it's fine. So knight to a4, and this rook a to b8. This is probably a waste of time, because rook a to b8 doesn't create really a threat. I think black should start his active counterplay as soon as possible with his bishop d6. If you are afraid of this capture on f6, maybe it makes sense to start with knight e7. So also normal move, just protecting c5. And then after rook c1, you play bishop d6 with a tempo. And, well, if I play something like g3, you just start this play. So bishop goes to h3, rook goes to e6 quickly, and so on. And, well, you have one extra tempo if compared to what happened in our game. I think it's better scenario for black. So rook to b8, rook to c1. Why this rook b8 is not that dangerous? Because if black plays c4, I just take. So my knight a4 protects the bishop b2, so there is nothing. I mean, I win a pawn, and so forth. Marcin says that there is a plan of queen a5, c4. Look, queen a5 isn't dangerous. I mean, knight on a4 is still protected. So I can, for example, play something like bishop c3 here. So in general, I can just go away with the bishop, and I will have extra material, which I think is very nice already for white. So probably bishop c3, the most accurate move here. So this doesn't really work. I mean, it's not that dangerous for white. So I think the best that black can do here is the attack on the king side. That's why queen a5 first, says Marcin. Alright, so rook here, rook c1, queen to a5. For example, again, I can play bishop a3, attacking the pawn. And if c4, I just grab on e7. I can take f6 next move. And after, I don't know, cb3, of course, should be considered, but I just take on f6 here. And I have extra material. b2 is controlled, b takes a2 is not that dangerous. So I have extra minor piece here, which means after that, rook e7 should be played. And again, I just take on c4, and my knight on a4 is protected. So I guess it's the wrong direction. So the attack on the king side should be black's main idea here. All right, let's come back to the game. In our game, knight e7 was played, bishop to a3, bishop to d6. Okay, I completely agree with this. g3. Maybe I should have tried f4 here, you know. But I was a bit afraid of d4 counterplay, so exerting pressure on my pawn e3, and f4 becomes vulnerable, so I thought g3 should be okay. But then appeared that black has some interesting counterplay. So rook to e6 was played here. Engine suggests c4. I don't know. Let's have a look at rook e6 first. So maybe here I made a mistake. It says that knight takes c5 was better than what I did. I played d4. And after rook g6, black obviously created very annoying threat of just taking on g3. That's why I played, by the way, this bishop to d3. But now I can see what I missed. So after bishop d3, most likely bishop g3 is possible with the follow-up in the form of bishop takes f2. That is what I didn't see. I mean, I was already under time pressure, and if I take on g6, let's say, bishop takes f2 is very, very, very good. And after this move, for example, queen takes h2. Wow, it's just a checkmate by force, I guess. Somewhere, so king goes here. For instance, queen g2, king goes to f4, and something simple like f takes g5. Creating two threats, rook to f8 and g5 with a checkmate in both cases. Wow, this looks awful. I mean, this is really, really bad. All right. So bishop d3 was a big mistake. Bishop f3 should have been played. Yeah, that's interesting. But very nice counterplay, Kramnik student. Very nice one. So g3 is under pressure. It's no longer that simple for me to protect it. And bishop d3 was a blunder. But okay, after rook f6, I think it's over. So there is no initiative. There is no real threat. That's why I just took on c5. And now white simply has extra pawn, and the rest is not very interesting. Okay, there was a comment about 19th move in the sense of rook takes g3, but bishop g3 is a great move, Sarit. That was your comment, as far as I remember. Rook takes g3 doesn't really work because in this case, I'm not forced to capture the second time, so I will take once. But after bishop takes g3, I will not take the second time, so I'll just play queen to f3 or something, protecting most important squares, and I will be material up. Also something like queen h5 should be interesting here, I guess. But, well, it's better to play queen f3, just protecting f2. And now if bishop f2, I take with the queen, and I control everything. All right, in any case, interesting game. One more thing about this opening. So here maybe it makes sense for black to consider something like d5 takes c4, and for example after bishop takes c4 you can delay development of the knight to c6, so maybe something like bishop e7 castles and so on. So yeah, it gives white some activity, but white also created some weaknesses in his camp, so it should be interesting. I mean, if you want to avoid this damaged pawn structure on the queen side, you should consider delaying the development of the knight to c6. Okay. So let us continue. The next challenge is from, I don't remember who was second actually, but let's play improvement player. This time with black. All right, with black it is quite hard to play this hypermodern openings because they are quite dubious. I mean, some things like Alekhine defense or Alekhine defense, something like Perk or Peart, different things. So they're usually quite dubious, so you need great knowledge to play. But some hypermodern openings like Nimzo-Indian, Queen's-Indian prove to be very, very solid. So in this game, I will try b6. Also very dubious move, but hopefully it will lead to some transpositions. Bishop to b7. Question from Sarit, what if bishop check? You probably meant bishop h2, then just king h1. There is no follow-up. So that goes to c3, okay, e6, and d4. So what do we have here? We have almost Queen's-Indian defense, or hybrid of Queen's-Indian and Nimzo, but without the pawn on c4, right? But the ideas are the same. So I try to attack the center with my pieces. That is the core of hypermodern approach to the center. So I don't occupy the center with my pawns. I kind of welcome this occupation of the center with pawns from my opponent, and then I use these central pawns as targets. That's the idea. Okay, bishop d3. So now we can play knight to f6, I guess. Continuing with the attack against d4. Queen to e2. Okay. So pawn e4 is protected. At the moment, bishop takes c3 doesn't give me anything. So maybe I should consider something like d7, d5 here, with the idea of occupation of the e4 square with the knight at some point. And there is a question from Chronic Student. Onder, will you consider playing a match with some other YouTube streamer? Yeah, would be interesting. At some point, I will do this for sure. But I need more subscribers because, well, this collaboration works only for YouTube channels with more or less equal quantity of subscribers. So, for example, it makes no sense for me, for example, to contact John Bartholomew or somebody asking for the match because he's not really interested in this right now. That's why you guys can subscribe to my channel. Not only to help me playing against other YouTubers, but also to get some instructive content. So these new subscribers, I think, already benefited from it. And found a lot of instructive chess videos on my channel. Besides this live streams, there are a lot of interesting content, including calculation training videos, some videos dedicated to chess studies and how to use chess studies for improvement and so on. Just check it out. You can find the short link leading to my YouTube channel here below. It is bit.ly/Mostrovsky. And now let's come back to the game. Let's focus on position on the board. So if white takes on d5, white loses his center, and I recapture with the knight attack and the knight on c3, I think. If white plays e5, I will consider occupying e4 square. In that case, we will have something like the French type of the pawn structure, but it's really not that simple usually for black to occupy e4 in such a situation. Here, at very first glance, it works. And it can be just very pleasant thing. So knight goes to e4, attacking the knight on c3. And X joined. Hello, my friend. Knight to e4, attacking knight to c3. And if bishop d2, I can simply grab that bishop, I think. Because this bishop, despite being limited with own pawns, is very valuable, in fact, in French defense. So every French player knows that for sure. Because this bishop usually finishes the attack. And my dark squared bishop is very valuable too. That's why I don't exchange it for the knight there. Now I think the plan is clear. So if you are familiar with the French defense, black has to undermine the center with the c7, c5, then to push those pawns. Of course, it will be not that easy to activate my light squared bishop, so maybe if there is a chance I will simply exchange it for that one. For example, right now, I can't see a big problem with exchanging this light squared bishop. So without this bishop, it is also quite hard to attack on the king side. So it's possible to push pawns, but will be quite hard for white to achieve anything tangible. That's what I mean. I think white is already struggling to find anything active here. It's not that clear what to do, in fact. So to take on c5, okay, this gives me a perfect conventional center. All right, white tries to activate the rook, which is very typical for this h4, h5 thing. So then rook to h3 to g3, attacking g7. But I can't see a follow-up, so I can easily protect that pawn with the king if I want. So I can probably focus on the queen side. So let's go to c8 with the rook first. Obviously this knight on a6 is ugly, so I should reactivate it through b8 and c6 maybe. Slightly later, knight b5. Alright, this more or less forces me to play queen d7, protecting a7 and attacking this guy. And maybe I will just play knight to c7 at some point. I don't know. Now also this just looks interesting, in fact. Because now I have another idea of activating my knight through c5 to e4 maybe. Or maybe through b4 to c6 after all. With capturing with this knight, I think e4 becomes quite good. So just change my dark squared bishop in your mind, I mean, for the light squared bishop. So imagine I have not the bishop on e7, but the bishop somewhere on b7. I would say white has very good playable position. But with the dark squared bishop on the board, I don't believe in white's position at all. Because this bishop has no drawbacks, absolutely. And hence my position has no drawbacks at all. Now rook to c4 looks like a possibility to attack a4. I guess we'll capture this one. And now we'll capture this one. So I have extra pawn already, but have some problems with my king side at first glance, but I don't think these problems are real. So let's play bishop g5. Attacking the queen and preparing castling. And after that, I'm not sure what is better, to take on c2 and castle, or just to take on c2 and play something like, I don't know, king e7 or... let's simply grab the queen. And play something like this. Because I have also the idea of just attacking e5 now, like this. And it was really hard to protect it, in fact. So 2 extra pawns. I don't have to lose this one on a7. Everything is protected. Now, there is no chance to survive it. Okay, thanks for the game. That was interesting. And now I think you understand the difference between this French types of position. I mean, some positions with the French pawn structure are pretty much straightforward in the sense of evaluation. Some of them are not. So it's important if there is a French bishop on the board, right? So what happened in our game, my French bishop just went away and I had no problems after that. So how to improve white's play in the opening to start with. So e4, bishop to b7, knight to c3 and e6. I guess it makes a great sense just to start with a3 here, just controlling b4 square, in fact, preventing all this stuff connected with the bishop b4. After that, white is much better prepared for this d4. So d4 after that becomes really an easy move to make. There is no problem with the e4 pawn. I guess this is just fine, right? Because after that, I think I have a very clear plan. I just play bishop b4, I just counterattack this pawn, and I definitely have some counterplay. Maybe it deserved attention to play e5 here. In fact, grabbing the space, because anyway, I get to d5 or e4 sooner or later, so why not to play e5 right now? In which case, I guess I would have played something like knight d5, now bishop d2 again. Intending to grab the knight on d5 and then exchange these bishops, but in this case my pawn is still on d7, so white has better situation in the center. And if I take on c3, let's say you take with the pawn, again avoiding exchanging this dark squared bishop, it is really important in the sense of attack. So as you can see, it controls g5 square, it controls h6 square, and just imagine we have the same like in the game and I play h7, h6 or something. You will have some motives of just sacrificing the bishop on h6 at some point. So it is very, very valuable piece in the sense of attack and French defense or similar pawn structures. And this position is good for white, I think. So yeah, there is a drawback in the sense of these pawns, but attack and perspectives on the king side are really cool. So queen e2, okay, I just played d5. Again, I would have considered probably just taking on d5, although it is already a different situation, but still, I guess it deserved attention. Because after e5 and knight e4, almost inevitably, we get that thing. So I just take on d2, and I believe that this position is already better for black slightly. Most likely it made sense for white to come up with a quick improvement of the knight c3, just to play something like knight e2, and to bring the knight as quick as possible to f4 or g3 with the intention of occupying h5 square. For instance, if I play bishop a6, you can still take here. Now, for instance, you play knight to, I don't know where is better, let's say knight to f4, and there is a threat of just knight h5, and if the knight is on h5, it will be quite annoying. And if I play something like g6, there are some interesting ideas connected with, I don't know, like queen d3 attacking my knight, and already intended at some point to sacrifice something. So on g6 or e6, knight takes, then queen grabs another pawn, and so forth. Maybe it's still not enough to achieve anything tangible in this position, but it looks like a better version of what happened in our game. Because after h4, bishop a6, and h5, white simply lost a lot of time on pawn moves, and the situation in the center became much more favorable for black. So already here, I think black is really, really good. So the knight goes to e4, then there are typical objects of attack. This pawn on e5 is now slightly abandoned. And again, just imagine there is no bishop on e7 and this bishop is somewhere on b7. I would say, okay, white is good. But with the bishop on e7, which is not limited and controls a lot of important dark squares, I guess white doesn't have real chance to attack on the king side, while black has no problems with the play on the queen side. Okay, so thanks a lot for this game. Let's go further and let's play against Sarit. And again, it was black. All right. e4, e5. You may ask me what is going on, but I'm going to play Philidor. Why can be considered hypermodern? Because I give up a central pawn. And I have only one pawn on d6, which somewhat controls the center, but the rest will be based on controlling the center with pieces. By the way, Nimzo, who was one of the most prominent hypermodernists, was a big fan of this Philidor or Stainis defense, so he played it himself and explained a lot in his super book My System, using examples from this pawn structure. All right, bishop g5 is not very popular move here, so I'll just continue development. Bishop e7. h3. h3. That is strange. It's just a blunder, I guess. Just a blunder. Okay. So my hypermodern strategy paid off quickly. I just attacked the center with a piece and already grabbed white's central pawn. Of course, I'm kidding. So Sarit just blundered. Unfortunately, now black has a big advantage already. Bishop e2, castles. And my knight on e4 is just gorgeous. Right or not? Castles. Now, what should we do? I guess we can occupy center now with pawns, supporting the knight e4, because now it's very natural to support the knight somehow. So d5 followed by c6. Looks good. Let's do. Knight to d2. So Queen f6 is interesting now. But I don't like the idea of having so many pieces not developed. But there is a problem with development, at least with the development of this guy on c8, because this knight on d4 is quite strong, just controlling a lot of squares. f5, c6, e6. I don't want to play c5 either, because in that case I kind of weaken my d5 pawn. But I definitely want to deal with this knight. Let's do this. I do believe it's not the best move. At very least, it helps me solve this problems of the development. And I really want to get rid of this guy. Bishop takes h3, says Swyho's X. By the way, it was an interesting idea, but there is knight takes c4, I think. Because if white takes on h3, there is obviously queen g5 check and takes on d2. But intermediate capture on e4, I think, saves white, and in that case, white has simply extra minor piece, and there is no compensation. Alright, so now let's take. Let us simplify position slightly. And well, c6 or bishop e6, which one is better? Which one is better? There is also an interesting knight to g3 possibility, but again, with not developed bishop on c8, it's kind of stupid, in my opinion. So let's bring the bishop to the game, protecting the pawn d5 and intending to play c5 at some point. So now I guess c5 first, just to clarify the position of the queen and grabbing some extra space. And then we will think about probably protecting the knight e4 with the f7 pawn by playing f7, f5. Should be a good idea. Against queen e5, I wanted to play, in fact, f6 or maybe queen to f6. Queen to f6 is also an interesting thing. So if I play queen f6, bishop takes c4, queen takes c5, knight takes c5, d takes c4. But after queen f6, bishop e4, and queen takes c5, there is intermediate capture on h7, which is a 9. So white regains some material, which is not good. I should be better after all still with the bishop against the knight. But why should I give up my extra pawn, right? For no reason. So let's play f6. Just attacking the queen and forcing queen to a worse position. Not that active at least as this one on e5. Should be gradually winning for black, but I have only 1 minute. I'm kind of slow, like a turtle. This queen h5 gives me one more tempo, so let's play bishop f7 and regroup our pieces. Now I like the fact that my queen protects the knight, in addition to pawn d5. It'd be harder for for white to attack it. If necessary, I will bring also the bishop to g6 to protect that knight on e4. At the moment it's protected, it's fine. There is maybe the threat of knight d2. Alright, so it makes sense, I guess, to have the bishop here. Or maybe it's time just to play f5. And let's try f5. Queen is protected, so if there is an exchange on e7, I'm okay with that. Because we have extra material, why not to simplify a position, right? All right. And if queen goes away, I have this f6 square to improve my queen as well. Now it's time to protect the knight. It wasn't possible to capture because my rook was hanging. But now everything is protected. Everything is activated, which is nice. And the king is very close to the center, which is also quite good in the endgame stage. All right, knight d6. Again, having everything protected here. So my pieces occupy dark squares, which is good because opponent has light squared bishop, so I kind of prevent any possible attack. And I don't understand the idea behind giving me one more pawn, in fact. So my queen became even more active, just quite safe here on f4 because pawn f5 controls everything important. Now let's go and attack new weaknesses. Protecting the rook. So that against h5 I can play g5. And rook g5, king g5 makes no sense because rook is protected on e3. Yeah, that's why I played d4. And the rest is simple. There's such a great material advantage, I should win easily. Yeah. Okay, so there is actually nothing to discuss. Everything happened in the opening when white lost the pawn on e4. So instead of playing bishop g5, I guess knight c3 should be played, but well, bishop g5 isn't a mistake. After bishop e7, on the other hand, there is a problem with protecting e4, because if white protects e4, say, with the minor piece, black can consider something like knight takes e4, I think. And if bishop e7, queen e7 protecting the knight, if knight takes e4, I just grab the bishop, and again, I'm just a pawn up. So maybe after that, it is already forced more or less to play something like f3 maybe. Doesn't look good. Or maybe queen to d3 or queen to f3. Maybe queen f3 is an interesting move here. Now my idea doesn't work because if queen takes e4 and my bishop is pinned. So after queen f3 I can't take on e4. But I can probably just continue with the development. I don't think that white's setup here is very sound. So it's better to avoid playing bishop g5, I think. Much better just this normal theoretic move, knight to c3. And bishop usually goes to f4 here if you want to develop this bishop and castle long or something. Okay. So question, would c4, bishop e2, d4 have been better chasing the bishop? That is the question from Twyhosex. Probably it is a question about the endgame stage. Well, in that position, it was almost everything good. So I think c4, d4 was also a plan, of course. But okay. So let's continue with other challengers. Here is Basim Ismail. Let's play him. 3 minutes. Alright, so I don't like playing 3 minutes within this show because I need more time to explain the things, but okay. One exception can be made, I guess. So now let's come back to London system. Against London system I usually play in conventional way. And I'm not going to change because I believe it is the best approach in any case. So I mean, I will occupy the center very, very soon with my pawn. Here it is. There is, of course, an approach of playing without d5, without knight c6, just something like cd4, ed4, b6, bishop b7, but I'm not sure it is good. Obviously, white has very simple plan there. That's what I mean. All right, now it's time to continue development. b6, bishop b7 should be played. Question from Kramnik student about my son. Why is Mark not making his presence felt? You know, today I would say it is quite great because he's very loud, extremely loud, and very nervous. So at the moment I think he's sleeping, which is nice. So bishop b7 or bishop takes g3, immediately intending to play queen to d6 or something. Let's take the bishop. Now it's okay because white already castled. And now I guess I have to prepare e5. Let us try queen to d6 or queen to c7. I don't remember which move is correct. Let's try this one. Although I'm not sure it is the best one. In fact, maybe bishop takes g3 is premature slightly. Maybe bishop to b7 should have been played instead. Maybe. Knight to g5 looks like a waste of time, in fact. So I can play just h6 here. And knight is going to f4. But okay, I just play e5 here. This is not very good maneuver, I believe, because it wastes a lot of time while making nothing against black's conventional central play. It's just occupying the center with pawns and winning some central squares. Hence, takes e5. Now I definitely take with the knight, attacking the bishop. And well, this knight on h3 is quite bad, and it's really tempting just to play g5 now, but I understand if I play g5, white will have counterplay based on f4. So maybe it's better for me just to give that knight an opportunity to go to f4. So let's continue with the development of our pieces. If white plays f3, this weakens e3 pawn, and in that case I can even consider taking on h3. By the way, f3 weakens also g3, so there may be even some tactical thing like taking here, yeah, and now simply knight to c4, like attacking this pawn on e3. It should be just lost on the spot. Look at these pawns. They look nice, but they are all weak. I can't see a good defense. Queen is pinned to the knight, so queen e1 doesn't work. I just take on d2 and then g3 drops anyway. So yeah, this position is already quite annoying. No, it's absolutely lost. All right, so let's have a look quickly what went wrong here. For sure, this knight g5 is the start of a very, very bad maneuver. Knight g5, knight h3 is unsound. So instead of doing that, it was necessary to start the attack in the center, I guess, because black is ready to play e5, right? That is black's plan. So white should be faster to actually fight for the advantage, at least fight for the initiative. So something like e4 should have been played here. In which case I can, of course, create this isolated pawn. but I think it's quite good for white anyway. So after these exchanges, for example, honestly, I would take white. So h7 looks really abandoned, as well as the whole king side. There is a threat of just playing rook to c1, very strong, and finally d5 at some point looks really promising. In addition to this, knight g5 for bishop h7, followed by knight g5 for simply queen to c2, attacking the knight on c6 and pawn on h7. I don't like this position for black, honestly. So maybe it was better for black to play something like queen d6 here, because at least queen doesn't occupy the c file, which becomes potentially very good for white. Or maybe even bishop to b7. So bishop to b7 is an interesting try here. And if e4, there is the difference though. So now if I take here, I guess there is something connected with the e5, which may make white's position slightly better. In this case, of course, I can take on c3. Most likely I can do it. But again, the thing is after that, everything becomes quite unstable. And I don't like this position on the king side. Even though I have extra material here, extra pawn, in general, I would, again, take white in this situation. So maybe bishop d6 should stay on the board at the moment, and black has to play something like bishop to b7 to start with. Then maybe queen to c7, so forcing white to take on d6, and queen gets to d6 at some point. Don't know. I don't remember simply the theory well, and actually that is why I played not the best way. All right. So what is going on in chat? So there was a question from Zweihosex. Andre, how do you train long-term and prepare short-term for specific openings? Responding, I think, your repertoire. So long-term, I already answered this question many times, but I can repeat. So I just learn the opening from all the sides. So I learn the classics. I try to understand the development of the line or the system of lines. So to understand the difference. So what was typical, for example, many years ago, why this actually changed, and so on. So that is the idea, and at some point I'm just choosing something that is understood for me, something that I feel comfortable with, and I stay with this line, right? And I learn some main directions, some side lines, try to memorize the main ideas, not the moves, because if you understand the idea, if you understand the plan, usually just remember in this concrete line containing some moves and so forth is not a big deal, at least for me. As for short-term preparation, well, it depends, of course. Sometimes I can change my mind, for example, and learn something specifically for the game against a certain opponent, but only if I think that the line I'm trying to learn, like during several hours, is well understood and not very risky, because if it is, for example, something like Dragon, of course, it's just a suicide to play Dragon against a well-prepared opponent, even if it is a surprise or something, but he knows this much better than you, for example, if you do this just one night before the game or something like that. So, well, I hope I answered your question. Here's Don Gravelli. Hello, my friend. I'm happy you're here again. So, yeah, and Crowning Student also adds to this that I answered some questions of this kind in Perpetual Chess Podcast. All right. In any case, there was an interesting question, and well, I'm happy to help. So let's continue. There are a lot of players, and by the way, there is a challenge from Zweihosex. So let's play against Zweihosex, you know. So you answered your question. Now let's play a game. hide on. Now let's go this way. So g3. I played b3 against Chronic Student. Now let's play g3. And as we may notice, my opponent plays also this hypermodern way, which is nice. The only thing here, I'm already castled, while black is still not. And this may be a problem. So d6, preparing e5. I told you guys during the previous episode of Learn from Chess Blitz that first and foremost you should be flexible, right? So I started with Hypermodern thing, developing my bishop on g2, but now I can see that the normal conventional d4 move should be the best one. So why not? Let's do it. Just d4. Knight to d7, preparing e5. All right. I will just close that bishop in that case, I think. I'll just play d5. And that bishop will be forced back to c8 at some point because it will be very hard to activate it, I think. Now, let's bring the knight to c3. And d5 should be just a very typical thing here. So we just close the diagonal for that bishop. We slightly close the diagonal for our bishop as well. Yeah, but we grab the space. We grab the space, and that is what matters here. So black will struggle in this game for sure. I expected e5, in fact. I don't like the idea behind this move, because now you will see what will happen. So my knight will have the access to this square, and this is a very important thing, because after knight d4, as we may notice, my knight also has the access to c6 and to f5. I think already here white has a great advantage, but it's still important to be accurate to actually convert it. So, for example, now black wants to play b5 and then knight to b6, attacking my d5 pawn, most likely. So should I just prevent it? I think I can do it if I want. Just play an a4, so let's try a4. So the question from Adriano, I had a crash connection. Is the challenge still here? Just let me know your nickname on Lichess, and I will tell you if it is still there. Okay. Croningston says, Andre, have in a alpha 0 position. What do you mean? What do you mean? I didn't see a single game from that match. Sorry guys, not a big fan of engines, even this cool new ones. And yeah, you don't even try to tell me the difference between a normal engine and this artificial intelligence and so forth. I understand it perfectly. Still not a big fan in the sense of chess. So rook to c8. There are so many different options, I would say. So I can start aggressive play in the center based on e4. I can start with probably b4 move, also grabbing even more space, because black doesn't really create a threat of playing c5 or something right now. Let's start with this. I like the idea of probably even playing b4, b5, and then knight to c6. My nickname is Adri22Gamer. Alright, I will check after this game, okay? Okay. So b4, b5, followed by knight c6. Or maybe just continue the development, so bishop to b2 should be also quite nice. I'm not in a rush here, I think. I should enjoy the position with more space. I shouldn't force the matters until I'm prepared completely. So if my knight goes to c6, bishop takes, pawn takes, then knight can go to e5 still. Knight already goes to e5. Okay, now there is a problem with the c4. So maybe now it's time to play knight c6, or maybe just queen to b3, in which case, however, black can actually undermine my d5. So I was probably not that accurate with my play here, honestly. I don't like my position that much anymore. At the same time, I'm not going to give my opponent an easy play after c6 or c5. So let's play this. Yeah, I understand the knight can go to c4 if necessary, but, well, bishop should go back to c1 in that case. But black decided not to play knight to c4, which is nice. So now I can activate all my pieces to maximum, and after that I will start my central play. So h3 to control g4 prior to playing f4. f5. This weakens a lot. So let's get there. Now my bishops will be monsters. I mean, sooner or later. Probably sooner. So to bring the rook to h4 is an interesting idea, to use the force rank. I'm not sure. But let's see. First e3, preventing f4, I wanted to say. So to avoid any sort of counterplay. And then most likely something like rook d4, queen to a1 is also the idea. So now rook d4, I like this move. Again, controlling the force rank, preparing h4, h5, and so forth. What is this? This is just an interesting trick, I believe. Okay, let's start with this move. Because I don't think there is a serious threat somewhere. At the same time, I don't want to take this rook with my bishop. I like my bishop on g2. And after that, black could have had some real counterplay. So just keep on squeezing black, at least pretend I'm doing that. All right. f4 deserves serious attention as well. But I was a bit afraid of queen takes g3. All right, extremely complicated game, so strange position here. Maybe I somewhere missed some chances to actually win the game easily. I guess my mistake was somewhere around this b4 move. So that was quite strange decision. We can end this c4 square. So instead, I guess I should have played this prophylactic move h3, just to be prepared for knight to e5, right? So after, let's say, knight to e5, I can play immediate f4, just starting pushing my pawns in the center and on the king side. The difference here, the knight can't go here because I just play b3, and the knight is forced to a5, which is extremely ugly position in my opinion. And it doesn't stop me from playing something like e4, or maybe even g4 and g5 and then e4. So I'll just push all my pawns, and it will be just a disaster for black at some point. Most likely queen d3 also deserves attention, just controlling c4 and preparing b4. In this case, black has something like c5 though. So that is not so clear how to play this correctly, in fact. Maybe something like b4 deserves attention here, and after knight c4, just play queen d3. Now the knight is definitely trapped, so b5 is forced. I take on b5, takes on b5. For example, I take with this knight. Knight comes back to b6 or something, in which case I simply have extra pawn, and I think there is no proper compensation. So yeah, I guess somewhere here b4 was too much. b4 was too much. I should have started with my play in the center somehow. So somewhere here after rook e8, bishop b2 and knight to e5, I was already worrying slightly about my position. So after b5, I expected knight to c4 move, which in my opinion was slightly annoying because this forces me back to c1, because I don't want to give up my bishop here, and that's 100%. And after bishop to c1, I'm no longer that sure that I'm that better. So after bishop f8, for example, yeah, this bishop is ugly on b7, but other pieces are quite good. So if I play queen b3, let's say, knight can come back to e5, and I can also go to a5, which is probably not that inspiring, but still absolutely playable in my opinion. So it's not that easy for white to start this attack, I guess. So that is the point. As for black's play, I believe that, well, starting somewhere from d6 move, it was already incorrect. So instead of playing d6, black should have played something like e6, preparing bishop e7 and castling. And in this case, there is a big chance that we will transpose to one of the main lines of Queen's Indian defense, right? So now, for example, something like knight a6 is played, or castling, and after d5, knight to a6, and then trying to occupy c5. So there is a long theory, and well, it is a very, very popular position. But this d6, I just don't like this idea at all, because it weakens a lot of light squares, and it gives me a chance to play d4, c4 quickly, and then d4, d5, and so forth. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's have a look at what is going on with challenges. Adri22 Gamer is here. Okay, so let's play Adri22. I mean, your challenge is here, and I'm playing with white again. So let's try b3. And double Fianchetto, also in the spirit of hypermodern approach. So both bishops now control central squares. White's idea is to undermine that center at some point when other pieces are active and also control central squares. So let's start with the development of the king side, because I'm going to castle short. Knight to d7. Can I just play knight to h4 now? Grabbing that bishop. Probably bishop will go to e4, in fact. Which is not that entirely bad for white, I guess. So let's play knight to h4, grabbing the bishop. Now I can just take, and I will take. I guess it's not that dangerous if black plays something like knight to g4, I have h3. So in general, this h file is not that is not that promising for black in this situation, I mean, with the Fianchetto. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Everything depends on what I achieve in the center. So let's start exerting some pressure in the center. C4 is the first stage, so we intend to take on d5 at some point, maybe. After c6, of course, taking on d5 will be too simple. So in my opinion, white should try something like d3, preparing e4 with further pressure against d5. So it will be much better for white to try to force black to capture somewhere on c4 or maybe on e4 to open up this long diagonal h1, a8 for the bishop. a4, a5, you mean a5, a4 probably good for black. It's one of typical things against b3, bishop b2, but again, it's not very dangerous if white reacts correctly, I mean. Okay. So rook to c8, not quite understandable. What is the idea behind this move? Maybe preparing for c takes d5, but I'm not going to take on d5. I mean c d5, c d5, and rook is already occupying this c file. So my idea was in fact to play knight e2 and to play e4 at some point. And I'm not quite sure that the position of the rook on c8 will be quite helpful in general. Castles. So we can forget about problems connected with the h file. Now we can completely focus on the central play. E4 right now, or after some preparation, I don't know. Let's play e4 right now. I like the idea of clarifying the situation in the center. Because it feels like white is ready. So a lot of pieces are already active. And finding good squares for heavy pieces will depend on the configuration in the center, I guess. And after taking on e4, I obviously take with the pawn. Yeah, knight takes e4, I don't achieve anything in the center, and black can simply ignore that piece. Was also interesting, by the way, so deserves attention. I still believe that taking with the pawn is slightly more aggressive, slightly more ambitious. So now I want to play e5 and then knight to e4, for example. And why not right now? So this gives me extra space. Oh no, this is a blunder. Oh my god. Knight takes e5 simply. Yeah, the first blunder today, I think. This is the first blunder and very bad blunder, to be honest. So, just a pawn down now. On the other hand, there is a advantage, because now position is slightly more open, so maybe my bishops will be good after that. But, well, it's highly unlikely. All right. Yeah, that is a bad game, just the first bad game today. Very bad decision e5, you know. I should have played a3, I think, immediately after bishop b4. There was a very, very sneaky trap. Yeah. So now I'm just trying to activate my light square bishop. I have a feeling that it is my only chance. So to play something like before b5 quickly and to have some counterplay based on that. And bishop a5 actually helps me with this plan. I think bishop e7 was much more solid. Because okay, bishop on c7 doesn't do a lot. I can play just like bishop to d4 or maybe just what? Bishop to c3. I don't know. What is better here? Well, let's start with the bishop d4. Just attacking a7. Yeah. And now it's time to continue with this. A4, B5, trying to create a weakness in black's camp. Of course, with the pawn on E4, it would be much better than this one, because once I play B5, for example, on this mass exchange on B5, there will be a slight problem with D5 square. But I don't think I have anything better than B5, so let's play B5. There is also an idea of just taking on f6 at some point, in which case I will have great chances to make a draw. And maybe it will be just the best thing for me to do. Because I'm taking great risks by just ignoring that possibility. But this c5, really, that is something strange. That is something really strange. So now I can take on f6 and take on b7, and we'll have equal material. And since we still have rooks on the board, I will have some chances to win. Or just take it on c5. Taking on c5 is also a very interesting thing, you know. Bishop goes to e5 in that case, but rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and rook somewhere. b7 is hanging. Maybe I'm stupid and blundering something simple, but I have a feeling that I can simply take on c5. And this promises me some play. b6. Okay. Let's just go away. It's just a great position. Just a great position for white, obviously. And this is a checkmate, look at this. Just a fantastic luck in this game, you know. Let's have a look at this. So I blundered badly. After bishop to b4, of course, white has to deal with this threat. So the best way to do that is just to play a3 immediately. I think this is just so natural and so simple move, like attacking the bishop. And after bishop d2, queen d2, okay, I have pair of bishops against pair of knights. It's possible to play knight c5, attacking b3 and e4, in which case I think queen c2 should be okay. So yeah, there is queen d3 possibility, but after this capture, bishop goes to d4, for instance, an interesting option, or maybe to c3 simply. But in this case, there is knight c5, which is slightly annoying. All right, maybe there is also a possibility just to take on f6 and to play something like rook to d1 quickly, knight to c5, let's say b4, and then trying to activate the bishop g2 somehow, so to put the pawn on c5 and so forth. So maybe there will be some compensation for black, because the bishop is usually better in such situations when pawns are on both flanks, and it is possible to, by the way, create a pawn on the h file here for white. So the pawn structure is exactly this one, where I can play h4, g4, h5, something like this. Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting position, really interesting thing. But I blundered. I played e5, which was very bad. Of course, black captured on e5. And now I think there is no way for me to save the material on the board. And after bishop e5, queen here takes. Black should have played bishop to e7, in my opinion. So there is nothing wrong with this move, and if I play b4, black has extra tempo to start simplifying the position. And I think black has good chances to win this. So black is fighting for a win, in my opinion. So white definitely has a compensation, no questions. So pair of bishops, this simple plan of playing b5 at some point. Fact that black has doubled pawns also helps white. So there are some drawish chances, of course, for white. But, well, I would take black here. Seriously. Maybe in blitz I will be still preferring white. But in a serious game I will take black. And I would have proved probably that white is great here. Don't know. Complicated position. But bishop a5 gives me just a tempo, which is not cool. And after that, in fact, b5 is not necessarily that dangerous. But I believe that c5 is a big mistake. So cb5 should have been played. I wasn't sure about this position. So if I take on b7, you just play rook to b8 attacking my bishop. And then you take on c4 and you're still pawn up. If instead of I take on b5, there is knight to d5 move. That's the thing. You just close diagonal h1, a8. Your knight is very good here in the center. Now having this normal strong point. And, well, it's really hard for white to prove anything, I guess. Really hard. Because if rook goes to a7 here, there is unfortunately some tricks like knight to c3, and if rook goes anywhere, then rook takes e4, and then knight to e2, and so forth. So I saw that during the game and understood that after knight e5 I have to find something else, not rook to a7, and I wasn't sure what to play here. Because black is ready to centralize the king, black is ready to play something like bishop to b6 maybe, simplifying the position slightly more, and so on. Okay. Let's continue. We still have some challenges. Here is A Santos. Let's play Santos. And black pieces now. Black pieces now. Again, just to repeat the things that I've already told you today, but probably not everybody realized that. So after getting more than 1,000 subscribers, there are some new features. For example, in live chat on YouTube, there is already a possibility to support me financially with the super chat. So you can see the sign of the dollar. So at some point you can try this function. You can try this function, just sending me some money during the live stream. If you like what you see, if you want to support me, if you want to inspire me to do this more often, at least. Also, what I actually forgot to say, or maybe I already told that as well, if you need something to improve your chess, if you need a content, really instructive one, you can check out my YouTube channel. bit.ly/Mastrovsky is the short link that leads into that channel. You can find it here below. So just become one of my subscribers. I will be happy to share my experience with you for free. So bishop c4. And we are doing what? We are playing something not hyper-modern. That is the opening from Romantic era. So we play King's Gambit. So by playing e5, I wanted to play Philidor again, but, well, my opponent didn't give me a chance to do that, so we're playing King's Gambit. Castles. Now let's try bishop to e6 move. So the point behind playing bishop to e6, I create some pressure in this diagonal g8, a2 already, so there are some concrete threats. This bishop on c4 is not that protected, that's the idea. And white is trying to make a decision on what to do next. Because obviously white wants to play d4. But d4 right away is probably not that great. Because of knight e3 or something like that. Okay, rook e1 is sort of preparation of that thing. But I have a feeling that I can play knight e3 anyway. Just right now. Can I? So knight to e3, let's calculate. D takes c3, queen d1, and bishop c4 is okay for black, having pair of bishops. So if after knight e3 rook takes, I take on f e3, and again I'm just up in material. So probably the critical test is bishop to b5 check or bishop takes e6. So bishop takes e6, I take the queen on d1, and then the bishop somewhere. But most likely it's not that dangerous. So double checks like bishop f7 or bishop d7, I just take the bishop. There is nothing. Alright, so knight e3, the main move is bishop b5. In which case I have to attack the bishop, so I have to play c6. Now d takes d3, takes d1, takes d1, takes b5, should be fine. Alright, let's try it. Maybe I'm stupid and blundering something seriously, but right now it looks good. It looks playable. Interesting if it works or not. If it doesn't, I will know. Okay, now I can take on c4 with the knight without much problems. So I understand there is queen c4 because my bishop is pinned, but I guess it is a good exchange because, well, now I have pair of bishops, which is very nice. Let's keep developing pieces, maybe bishop d6 or something. No, I guess bishop to e7 should be good, safe option. Maybe greedy queen d6 was even better, you know, protecting d4, intending to react with the queen c6 to queen b5. Yeah, that was probably better than what I chose, but okay, in this position I don't think black has much problems. Without this light squared bishop, it is usually quite hard for white to come up with the attack. So, at very least, black solved his opening problems, I guess, already. So there is a clearer plan of undermining d4, opening the position, at least trying to open the position for the pair of bishops, and so forth. Want to be the first guy to super chat. Thanks a lot, Kramnik student. Thanks a lot. Very nice. Very nice. Whew. First super chatter is here. Try to outplay Kramnik student. C3. All right. Let's just keep developing pieces. So knight to c6. Looks a natural follow-up of this c5 move. Completing the development and so forth. Yeah, very nice, Kramnik student. That was very good. Thanks a lot, my friend. Really happy. Really happy now. So we know now that this function works. That is great. That was a critical test of the function. So I have better development right now. More active pieces. So I like my position. That is really, really cool. But what to do? Positions without pawns in the center are usually not so simple to evaluate quickly. So definitely black has to come up with the active pieces play, but right now everything looks solid in white's camp, although the vast majority of pieces still occupy initial positions. let's take. This is probably not very cool. This is probably not very cool. But still looks interesting. So h6 now. Controlling g5, I feel like g5 should be controlled to avoid this knight g5 and so on. And now what is my target? What is my main target here? I guess d3 square or something, but right now again I'm not sure. I have the access to that square. At least there is no easy access. So let's just activate my pieces. Trying to provoke some new weaknesses maybe. Alright. Knight to e4. That's what I wanted to try, to put my bishop on this diagonal. This is not very dangerous, I think. I can play b6, but I have only 25 seconds. That is slightly annoying. I don't have enough time. Probably, but this position already looks very good. This position already looks very, very attractive for black. Let us simplify a bit. And bring the rook to the second rank, which is also quite good. Quite good. f3 is hanging, which should be quite annoying for white. Oh, only 14 seconds. Only 14 seconds. Which is obviously bad for me. So attacking b2 now, at least. I'm preparing for knight to e3. Black's position is obviously much better. But the time on the clock is much better for white. Oops, this is a big mistake. Yeah, and I'm winning now. All right, so I guess white made a mistake here, giving them a chance to actually jump to e3. So after bishop e6, as far as I remember, the best reaction is queen to e2. So just protecting the bishop and avoiding this knight e3. So you basically do the same. You ping my bishop on e6, you create some threats, connect with knight g5 or knight d4, or simple d4. By the way, the queen on e2 is quite logical here, controlling e3 square. And another possibility is just to start with bishop to b3, also safe move. In which case, though, I have something like c5 controlling d4. So should be checked twice somewhere. So this is still a theory, of course, a theoretic position. And yeah, the main idea behind bishop e6, if compared to bishop e7, is to have this trick with the knight e3. So after that, I think black's position is already quite good. But maybe I made a mistake somewhere here. So after queen e2, I think that, well, there is no big difference. No, there is a big difference. If I take with the bishop, obviously you take with the queen, and my knight is trapped here. It is pinned and it is attacked, so you just grab it next move. So knight takes c4 was good. But after queen c4, I somehow forgot about this pawn f4 and played bishop e7, because I was tempted to complete the development to castle as soon as possible. But maybe something like queen to d6 was much better, because look, it is a multi-purpose move. In fact, I protect the pawn on f4, I prepare queen to c5, check, exchanging queens if necessary. If queen b5 check, I have queen c6, also saving my material advantage here. So I'm not sure that after queen d6 black is, white is okay. So I don't see a clear way to regain the pawn. If knight g5, then I just play queen c5, I think. So takes, king goes away. I can play simply something like this, and after 96 f6 I am still a pawn up, which is great. Alright, already in endgame stage, so there is no attack whatsoever. So yeah, maybe queen d6 was a move. After bishop e7 position was still slightly better for black in my opinion. Well, I had no time, and I was struggling to find the correct plan here, so I was just trying to make active moves, and at some point it gave me a good position. But I believe white could have improved his play somehow, even after giving me this pair of bishops. So white's play was quite passive in my opinion here in this endgame stage. But still, very nice game. Thank you for the game. Thank you for this experience. And let us continue. But first, let's have a look what is going on. What is going on in chat? So Chronic Student says 1,043 subscribers. We need 7 more. All right. So guys, it's of course up to you to subscribe or not to subscribe. Just pay attention to what Chronic Student also did. So he super chatted me. That was very pleasant and very nice. It is something new because it becomes possible only after you get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So this function quite new to me, and I'm happy it works. So let's go further. Here is Aris. Let's play Aris. Oh, check to the king is here. That's great. That's great, my friend. I'm happy you're here as well. So check to the king is the guy who follows almost every Twitch broadcast of mine, which is amazing. So I appreciate your support as well. Thanks for joining this broadcast as well. Many thanks. So e5, that goes to d5. So this hypermodern opening, of course, should have been tested within this show. So Elohim or Alekhine defense. I prefer Elohim because it is closer to what we are used to say when talk about this great world champion. But as far as I understand, Western guys usually call him Alekhine, probably because of the spelling. So knight to f3, protecting the e5. And there are different moves for black as well. There are different moves. So c6 or d takes c5. Or what? Or knight to c6. So there are different moves, obviously. So g6 is one of them. So let's try g6. It's quite a risky move, but still playable, I guess. Still playable. So I prepare the development of the bishop. Occupying this long diagonal makes sense. I just exert pressure on e5. So I provoked white to occupy the central squares, right? And now these central pawns are my targets. I want to force white to take on d6 or something, which will activate my bishop g7 and so on. So let's see if it is possible. Castles. Okay, I think castling also makes sense for me. A question from Check to the King about Nizhmetdinov, of course. It is a legendary player. Legendary Soviet player, so yeah. I examined his games. And he's really, really cool. So c4, knight should go to b6. There is no better square anyway. Knight to c3. Knight to c6. Okay, Zweihosex joined the super chat competition. Very nice, many thanks. It's really, really cool. All right, knight to c3. I had a bit destruct, but in a very good way, you know. All right, knight to c3, developing the knight, but doing nothing to overprotect e5. So maybe I can try a simple knight to c6 move. Bishop to g4 looks also interesting. I guess knight to c6 is something in the spirit of this defense, of this opening. And the question from Super Chat. Super Chat is the possibility to support me financially. So if you look at the chat window, somewhere behind where you're typing, there is a sign of $1, and you can send me a Super Chat. So simple chat is when you say something in live chat. Super Chat is when you add some money to that. And Zwahozek says, welcome, much appreciate all the work you spent for us patzers. Okay, you're my favorite patzers anyway. I'm happy to help. So, the thing is, e5 is handing now for sure. And white has a choice between taking on d6, which is actually what I wanted to achieve, right? To force this diagonal to be opened. And d5 is a blunder. I mean, I can take on e5 with a knight now, and I win a pawn. So the other move was bishop f4, which I would have considered probably. Maybe it wasn't a blunder. Maybe white wants to compensate this missing pawn with some active play. After I take on e5 with the bishop, let's say there is bishop h6, bishop g7 takes, and then queen gets to d4. And white has more space, and my king is potentially not that protected. On the other hand, if I take with the pawn, then there is c4, c5, forcing the knight back, and this is ugly. Or maybe it's fine. I mean, I take with the pawn, c5, my knight goes to d7, then to f6. I just regroup my pieces and everything's okay. The question, am I close to a GM title? No, I think. After having the second GM norm, I will be closer. And right now I have only one. So like 30% is accomplished, which is not cool. All right. Now I can undermine d5 pawn. I think it is my next goal, next target. So without that pawn on d5, I will feel much more comfortable. Let's try to do something with this pawn. Takes. Not sure what was that. I mean, rook to b1. Maybe it was a misclick or something. Maybe white wanted to play rook to c1. But this looks just good for black. Finally. So extra pawn, although doubled, but still it is extra one. Which looks cool. Queen to d2. Very good move, by the way, depriving my queen of this a5 square, which I would be happy to occupy. So now, I guess the best square for my queen is here on d6, so let's go there. Why this strange way? Because if queen c7, then rook c1, and if queen d6, there is bishop c5. So I want to control c5 first, so to play something like b6. If, of course, it is the case, because after bishop h6, it's no longer the case. But still, I think queen b8 was slightly more accurate than queen c7. Alright, after this exchange, I think I'm fine. Peter Finlay, or Finlay, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name correctly. Sorry if I did that wrong. Thank you very much. Another donation, another super chat. Very good. Great, I would say. Okay, rook to c5. Rook to c8. Activating everything. So the only problem here is that I have only 24 seconds, but obviously my position is already very good. So I have extra pawn and great perspectives here. So white doesn't have a lot of play. And I think what I should do here is just to simplify the things. Still, I'm not sure I will be able to convert this in time. Well, let's try at least. Let's try at least. The plan is simple. So I should bring my pieces to active positions. White is experiencing some problems with the back rank, which helps. And now we do what? We just activate everything to maximum. Activate everything to maximum. Maybe I blundered something. Maybe I blundered something. So there is a counterplay, very annoying one. I should have avoided this activation of the bishop, obviously. But I'm still having some chances to win this. Yeah, I won on time, and last moves were obviously just very, very messy, and there were a lot of mistakes. But the thing is, white somehow lost the pawn quickly in this situation after knight to c6. I definitely expected taking on d6. Well, probably it helped black a bit, but still, white should be not that bad. So yeah, I have some pressure against the central pawns. So c4 and d4. I can add my bishop to g4, sorry. So probably a good way of preventing that is just to play h3 here. Then bishop goes to e3. And, well, at some point white starts pushing his pawns. Black will try to do something in the center now. Maybe something connected with the d5 or e5. But it's a normal play in this opening line. So playing d5 here gives me an extra pawn, and I don't think white has a sufficient compensation for it. And the better way of playing this after g6, I prefer, in fact, playing bishop to c4 here. Slightly more aggressive move. And after knight to b6, bishop goes to b3, there are some ideas with attacking this f7. For example, bishop g7, knight goes to g5. After e6, queen goes to f3. And, well, black has to think about protecting this pawn and so forth. Okay. So, interesting game anyway. And again, this is a hyper-modern approach to the center. So I actually give you a chance to occupy the center with pawns, but then your pawns become targets. So knight f3, by the way, is very solid move and very good one in my opinion, because white doesn't forget that the pawns should be supported by other pieces. Otherwise, they will become even more vulnerable, even more how to say that? I don't want to actually invent a new word, but okay. So in general, the vulnerability of central pawns at the early stage of the game is a very common thing. So it usually happens if you play with pawns exclusively, right? So if you use only your pawns, pieces should also take part in controlling the center. It's very, very important. All right. Let's go further. Let's go further and play some more games. So let's play fish. Mr. Fish. Playing with black again. All right. How long after this session will the stream be available offline? I want to check the online analysis. After this session, this stream will be transformed into just a normal video on my channel. That's the thing. So it will be transformed into the video. The only thing is that the live chat will disappear, but it will be still there, the same link that I shared on Twitter, for example, and so forth. So it won't disappear. Only live chat disappears. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can find all the live streams there. I mean, all the shows, all the Learn from Chess Blitz episodes. So they stay there. They stay there for forever, unless I delete them manually. All right, G3. So usually I play C6 here, get into close Catalan. But we do something else today. So this time we are discussing Hypermodern center and so forth. So bishop goes to A6. Let's try to play this one. I used to play this line, and maybe one day I will come back to this one, or we'll mix this with the C6 move that I prefer nowadays. So the idea that I attack pawn C4 with the bishop already, which is quite an interesting thing. And if compared to the vast majority of positions in Queen's Gambit declined, for example, this bishop doesn't feel like a passive piece, so it already takes part in the attack. And one has to protect the pawn c4 because obviously bishop g2 doesn't work. In that case, I take on c4 and then my bishop can go to d5. Queen c2, super tricky line. So now there is no much sense in having the bishop there. So bishop goes back to b7 to control this long diagonal and control d5 square additionally, which means that I can play c5. Don't say you're old, X. You're just experienced. All right. You're just experienced. And e3 is not a great idea. So the good move is d5, playing this very popular gambit, in my opinion. Also taking on c5, but e3 is just too passive. I guess I can play something like bishop e4 followed by knight c6 here. So just attacking the queen, then developing the knight on c6 and exerting additional pressure on d4. I can also consider just taking on d4, in fact, and then playing d5 at a proper moment. What can I do in this position? What could be the best move? Let's play bishop e4. It somehow feels quite interesting to try. Maybe not the best one. D5 is the alpha 0 choice. Come on, guys, you're so well prepared in the sense of knowing what alpha 0 plays. Yeah, just share the link with me. I mean, where did you find all this? Because I have no idea what alpha 0 played and why exactly d7, d5 is his choice or something. Yeah, I guess that's I somehow misplaying it. Let's come back to normal things. So cd4, ed4, d5 here. Should it be an improvement of the initial cd4, ed4, d5 or vice versa? Knight to c6, I think there is just knight to c3 and... Or maybe there I will win some material. Maybe, maybe not. No, most likely I won't win the material there. Yeah, bishop e4 was a Patzer move. So just attacking the queen. I mean, typical Patzer move, attacking the queen, but having no idea behind it. I didn't calculate anything, and now I'm struggling because bishop on e4 is definitely vulnerable. Let's take on d4. And now knight to c6, attacking the pawn d4. Tempo move. Now I know what I missed. So I calculated knight to c3 and thought that in that case I had to take on f3 and only then take on d4. But now I know that if knight goes to c3, I can take on d4 immediately. After knight e4, I take on g2 with the tempo. So that is the additional threat, just taking on d4 right now. But the problem is that I think I can simply castle here, protecting the bishop on g2. And I have no idea what I'm going to do then. Maybe knight to b4. Another trick, just like attacking these two squares, c2 and d3. Have no idea. We'll see. All right. Right, castling was played. Let's play knight b4, because I didn't see another way to justify the position of the bishop on e4, obviously. So now at least I create a threat of just bishop d3 or knight to c2. So some tactics. Why didn't I take on f3, by the way? Because in that case, queen can take on f3. And if I take on d4, my rook on a8 is hanging. That was a problem with that line. Knight e1. Alright, now at least I can exchange that bishop. And now I'm more or less happy with this position. Because after white recaptures, I will play d5. Yeah, it's probably the best possible situation for this pawn structure. I mean, I could have achieved the same with the bishop on b7 and bishop on g2, but after exchange of that bishops, I think black is doing better than with that bishops on the board. All right. Let's take with the queen. Great queen in the center, but will be quite vulnerable very soon. So again, maybe not the best decision. Maybe knight takes d5 was better. But knight c3 is okay. In this case, I think I can just take on d4. Counter-attacking. So that queen on e2 is hanging. This queen on e2 betrays white in this line. Or maybe not. I don't know. Position is just too complicated for me having only 40 seconds on the board. Alright, does it make sense to create a threat of a checkmate? I guess, yeah, it makes sense. I want to grab on h2. Okay, forces me to do this. I don't want to be passive, so let's play rook to c8 and e5. Now I guess a6 is playable. No, it was a mistake. Knight a7 was playable for white after that. Oh, lots of mistakes. Lots of mistakes. But now black is doing well. So the only thing which is left is just to make castling. And we're fine. More than that, even. Yeah. Okay, so Interesting game, but white misplayed it again in the opening, so it is a topical line. So after bishop b7, bishop g2, and c5, in my opinion, the best and the most critical test of black's approach is just to play d5. So black definitely did everything to prevent this d5, because at very first glance, black can simply take. But after cd5, white has a compensation. So after bishop d5, knight to c3, white quite quickly develops the pieces, so castles, where it goes to d1, then e4, and so forth. So this extra pawn is actually a big problem for black, because black trying to save that pawn on the board actually wastes a lot of time, and white has very active pieces play. And obviously black has some serious weaknesses here. For example, d6 square is quite noticeable. The same is about d5 and the pawn d7 itself. So everything is on the d file, which white quickly occupies, and so on. So after e3, I think I made a mistake. So I played this stupid bishop e4 move. Instead, I should have considered just taking on d4, or maybe simply bishop e7 and castling. And then at some point, I will undermine the center again with the d5. Don't know which one is better. So cd4, ed4 forces white to have these pawns. So potentially I can play d5 and actually force the isolated pawn, or maybe some hanging pawns on c4 and d4 or something like that. So this should be quite comfortable. Bishop e4 was not that great. I took on d4 and then played knight to c6. All right, what could be the best move for white here? Knight d4 is this right. Unfortunately, this makes this knight to b4 possible, in fact. I mean, if white plays on like knight to c3, I can take on d4. And after that, bishop takes g2 with the tempo, and obviously black is much better. Well, so maybe this bishop e4 was also not that bad. Maybe queen e2 is a mistake, in fact. Maybe queen to d1 was better. Just having d4 pawn protected. So now this cd4, ed4, knight e6 doesn't really make a harm. And white can continue knight to c3 next move. And this bishop on d4 is quite vulnerable. Yeah, probably queen d1 was a move. Probably queen d1 was a move. All right. So let's continue. Let's continue and play some more games. So let's play Salmon. 5 plus 3 is just... I mean, it's too slow, but okay, let's play. Maybe it's even better to explain some things. And probably after that, I'll play one more game, and it will be just enough for today. Because I feel like I'm getting tired, and the quality of my chess just drops because of that. So continue playing Nimzo, or Queen's Indian Defense. In this game, it is a Nimzo-Indian, named after Aaron Nimzovich, great hypermodernist, one of the greatest theoreticians, chess theoreticians ever, the author of my favorite chess book, My System. So, great guy. Knight to f3, leading to a hybrid of Nimzo-Indian and Queen's Indian Defense. Of course, b6 is not the only move for black here, but I prefer exactly this one. a3, forcing me to take, but I'm not against. So usually white plays a3 immediately if he wants. In that case, white still has a chance to play f3 with the pawn to occupy the center with pawns. So I think this is still playable for white, but it's better to have the knight on g1 if you want to play with this pawn structure, because now I will just attack this c4. That is the idea. And I have a clear compensation for missing dark square bishop, because these pawns on the queen side are quite vulnerable. e3, all right, bishop goes to a6. Typical thing, just starting this attack right now. That's why I played this knight c6 move. So white has to think of what to do with this pawn, because it is under attack. And I want to grab it right now. There is no problem with capturing it. Queen e2. I think it makes sense for me just to play d5. It's also possible just to play knight b3, knight c1, another typical thing to do here. But I like the idea of fighting for central squares and also exchanging the light squared bishop. So cd5 is more or less forced here. And then I will grab that bishop on d3, which is the main attacking piece here. So white's idea is usually to play aggressively in the center, like e4, e5, and then bishop d3 becomes very active against h7. So exchanging that bishop is kind of very typical, very natural idea for black. Okay, intermediate capture. And now I can take with the pawn, but even better in my opinion to take with the queen. That is the hypermodern approach. So I control the center with pieces, and my queen is very good here. Moreover, I have the access to this square, and usually that is exactly what black wants. So just to have the access to c4 square. And that's enough. Many years ago, when I was working with legendary Soviet grandmaster and Ukrainian grandmaster Gennady Kuzmin, he showed me one of his games where he based all his strategy exclusively on this c4 square, playing with black. I was really impressed. And after that, I realized that, well, in many cases, it's just enough for black. Black doesn't need anything more than that. So let's say queen c4, something like this. The question about the second part of my system, so it was my system in practice. Honestly, I never ever seriously read it. So I guess the most valuable part is the first one, simply my system. That is the masterpiece. And the second part, well, maybe, but I'm not sure it is really important. But the first one is just genius work in many ways. All right, and now my knight can go to c4. My other knight can go to e4, attacking this c3. Which move to make first? I guess knight to e4 first. I might be wrong, because after knight e4, f3, knight takes c3, there's bishop d2. Maybe just to start with the knight c4, in fact. Controlling already b2 and... Well, I'm not sure I will have a chance to save that knight on c4. All right, let's play knight to e4. It's questionable, but I guess it's still fine. Question, what other books would you recommend? Generally, I recommend everything that was written by John Nunn and everything that was written by Dvoretsky. So if you're a not very experienced player, then I would recommend to start with some John Nunn books. So he has a great book, Understanding Chess Move by Move. Another one I would recommend is Understanding Chess Middle Games and Understanding Chess Endgames. Understanding Chess Move by Move was written many years ago, and this one's Understanding Chess Middle Games and Endgames. These ones were written, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, or something like that. All right. Yeah, that is the problem with the knight e4. Now, if I take on c3, I win a pawn, but then bishop d2 attacking my knight, and then bishop takes a5 damages my pawn structure, which is not very attractive. But maybe I have some tricks there as well. So let's take. Pawn is a pawn after all. And I'll say knight to d5. Is it a pliable move? The idea is to do something with this e3, which became weakened after white played f3. And if white pushes e3 pawn, then d4 becomes my target. e4, immediate e4, without even taking on a5. Against this, I actually wanted to try something like knight to b3, attacking the rook and bishop on d2, or knight to c4, kind of avoiding this damage. Can I play this or not? So knight to c4, takes d5, takes d2, rook goes to d1, then knight goes to c4 or b3, attacking d4. I think it's playable, so let's play it. Knight to c4. So it takes d2. At the moment, I'm a pawn up. And this knight on d2 is quite tricky. So there are a lot of objects of attack. There are a lot of routes. If I'm not mistaken, of course. But I can't see how white can stop me, for example, from playing knight to b3 right now. Just attacking the rook and grabbing this pawn on d4. Logical chess move by move. I'm not sure if I know this book. I'm not sure by Irving Chernev. Never read this. Never ever. So cannot say anything if it is wrong. If it is good or bad, I don't know. Would be wrong to say that it is anything without reading it, right? So now knight takes d4. Now I have 2 pawns. And knight comes back to the center, which is nice. Very safe position here on e6. But now I think after knight f4 I have some problems, in fact. So after king e7 or king d... After king d7 there is check, very annoying one on d1. After king e7 there is knight d5. In which case, I think I can play king to d7 after all. Doesn't feel like very attractive thing. Maybe just to forget about this one pawn and convert the one. Let's just play this way. Okay, I don't need a lot. One pawn is just enough. But we avoid the passive defense, I think. So rook to e8. Activating the last piece in this game. I have 3 against 1 on the queen side, already having a passed pawn, so should be great in general. Alright, let's protect this one. And that is my object of attack. I mean, I will attack it somehow. Maybe, you know, I don't play in the most accurate way. Of course, now it's justified. So I just play rook to d4, forcing the exchange of rooks, where after it's over. Because now I start activating my pawns here. And I can do this different ways because the king is like cut off there. So I can even place in like king a6 and b5, as simple as that. But I think still creating 2 connected passed pawns is the best possible thing to do here. And I'm still inside the square, so it should be just lost. All right. What about this thing? Typical trick in king and pawn endings when you have double pawns, like controlling both. So after, say, let's open the analysis board. After, say, king c2, c5, king b1, c4, king here, and c3, and here, I can start this march. So my king goes and collects all that pawns. It's enough just to collect this one to take e4, and then to support the c or a pawn. So I actually explained a lot during the game. So the main thing here, if you want to play a3, do it right now. So after bishop b4, so you have the same pawn structure, but the difference is that you still have the chance to play f3 with the pawn and then e4, much more aggressive approach, and you definitely have interesting play there. So if you want to understand this type of pawn structures and to find a good example to follow, I guess you should learn the games of Grandmaster Sergei Volkov. So he plays that on a regular basis, but he plays the line with the f3, in fact. So he starts with this move, but sometimes there are transpositions, because in many cases white then plays a3. Sometimes they are different positions. In any case, he's a great expert in these pawn structures, I guess. All right. The question, Andre, will you make your son a grandmaster? Well, I will try my best. But first I have to become a grandmaster myself. Okay. So let's play the last game. And I want to play against Cavendish. So, which type of the opening to try in this game? I've already played a lot. I didn't play f4. So the bird, which is actually also quite similar in the sense of ideas to Nimzo-Indian, Queen's Indian, but reversed, of course. And also the Dutch, it's kind of Dutch reversed in many cases. So I mean d4, f5 is the Dutch. Here I play f4 and black played d5. So as we may notice, it is more or less the same position. Okay, so I can play the stone wall, but it's not about hypermodern approach. So I will play this. Castles. Now bishop to e2, I think. Preparing castling as well. So now there may be the idea of playing d4, but I can't really prevent it, in fact. So I will just castle. Knight to c6 now gives me a chance to play knight to e5, and this is usually the way to prevent d4. So let's go there. Let's occupy this outpost. And here is another super chat from Don Gravelli. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my friend. That is amazing. That is just amazing. Many thanks. Check to the King says, Andre, one day I want to be able to calculate like you. I'm not the best one in the business. Not the best one. So it's better to calculate like, I don't know, like Vishy Anand. Vishy Anand. When he's in his best shape, he calculates very fast, very deep. So a lot of different lines and very accurate. So once Garry Kasparov, many years ago, he said that he's probably just the perfect one in the sense of calculating, in the sense of calculations. So Vishy Anand, that should be your example to follow, I guess. Bye-bye, Don Gravelli. And many thanks again for your super chat. That was great. I mean, amazing. Say calculate like Kramnik, Andre. Yes, calculate like Kramnik. Kramnik is also great. They're all great. Alright, d4 is played. Come on, let's focus on the game. So I think I have to damage the pawn structure here. So knight takes c6, b6. And now we should start attacking that pawns maybe with the help of bishop f3. Or maybe it is better to start with some sort of prophylaxis, because black is going to attack my e3 this or that way. And I have a feeling that I need my knight on c4 to protect that pawn. So let's play knight to a3. Also the way of developing the knight. Moreover, now this c4 square looks like a great outpost for white. The question, did you ever play Nakamura? Yes, I did. That was a disaster. We played like 10 blitz games in a row. I lost all of them. Just all of them. I mean, no chances. That was several years ago. Maybe 2 years ago. Maybe. I don't remember exactly. At least in one of them, I mean in the last one, I had a decisive advantage. There was the only game where I completely outplayed Naka. I really managed to outplay in a very silent position with white. But then, being that excited, like a patter again, typical thing. So I was really excited. Like, wow, I'm about to beat Naka. I lost even that one. Misplayed it completely. Yeah. All right, let's take on e3. Let's take on g7. And now e3 is under attack. And I can protect it easily with the queen d2, I think. Or queen to c1. I don't know which one is better. If I play queen d2, then knight takes f4 is possible, but then queen c3 check and I take on f4. Okay, so I can play queen d2 if I want. And I do want, because now I control a5, preventing queen a5. I control a lot of dark squares, which is vital because I no longer have dark squared bishop on the board. So it's typical thing. My light square bishop controls light squares, and my queen kind of replaces the missing bishop on the board. And why queen d2? Why not knight to c4? Because after knight to c4, bishop a6 was possible. As we may notice now, well, black has a problem with finding a good square for the bishop. That's why I play queen to d2. And by the way, that is the answer to the question, why not knight to c4? So now black has to spend one more move on preparing that. And by the way, I have very interesting defense against bishop a6 again. It is rook to d1. Now I create some threads along the d file. Marcin says that he has to go. Thanks a lot for joining, Marcin. See you. I hope you actually learned a lot. Yeah, and you're welcome, of course. So right now I have a threat of just playing e4. And if bishop goes to a6, I capture the bishop on a6, and after rook a6, I play e4. And as we may notice, the queen on d8 will be hanging. That's the problem. That's the problem. Queen to c7. Okay, understandable. It is a direct defense against e4. So let's prepare it anyway. I like the idea of playing e4 at some point. Because after that I get this c3 square for my queen to attack this c5. And rook d8 looks like a mistake, a big one. Because now I can play e4. Right? Right. Yeah, it was a blunder. I was fortunate. So it was necessary to develop the bishop, maybe to put it on f5 or something. But rook d8 is just bad. Because there is no, basically, the difference between the queen or rook on d8 in such a situation when bishop is on c8. So in both cases, this rook is, or queen, let's say heavy piece is hanging after the knight goes away, which means I can play e4. Yeah, Mark now is making his presence felt. Finally. All right. Thank you guys for your patience, because he may be very loud. All right, I have intermediate check here. So it doesn't help black to actually regain the piece, and then my bishop goes just away. Just to f1, I guess, right? Yeah. Extra minor piece now. And c5 is hanging, and my knight is about to occupy c4. Of course, black can grab a2 pawn, but it doesn't really change the situation, doesn't really change the evaluation of this position. All right. Didn't capture on c5. Probably forgot about that, but in any case, with the extra minor piece, of course, white's position is absolutely winning. a4, a3, let's say. Attacking the knight. Mark is great. I hope, yeah. I will do everything to make him great, in fact. To help him become great. So knight to d7, knight doesn't have a lot of moves, so let's just play bishop to h3, attacking it. And there are many different plans now for white. I'll just activate my rooks here along the b file. Should be just good enough. Yep, so last position. What went wrong? So let's have a look at the opening stage. When I played f4, yeah, there was a moment when I played knight to e5. So in such a situation, the best thing black can do is to protect the knight on c6. So to play something like queen to c7, let's say, preventing the damage of the pawn structure. That's the thing. So if I take on c6, okay, you recapture with the queen. And your pawns are still good, are still healthy. So the pawn structure is still flexible. So everything is fine here, right? Right. So that's the thing. There was a mistake, basically. So after this, I think white is already better. And the only question is if black has a counterplay based on this e3 pawn, but I don't think there is a counterplay after this. I love my position, in fact. So there is a threat of e4 at some point. There is the idea of playing knight to c4 and so on. So long term, white's position is already much, much better because these pawns, I mean c5, c6, and a7 won't go away. So it's impossible to get rid of those pawns unless I do something deeply wrong, allowing the exchange of those pawns or something like that. In fact, I have great blockading potential. I can put a lot of my pieces on c4, for example, to completely blockade this c5 and c6. So this position is already very bad. All right. In any case, thanks a lot for this one. I mean, this episode was really cool. I was really happy to be live with you again for, my God, 2 hours and a half. So you're making me happy. You actually inspire me to be here for a long time. So today we tried a new option. So not only subscribing to my YouTube channel, but also sending me super chats. Much appreciated, guys. Thanks a lot for each and everybody who tried this option. And to be notified about my chess-related activity, I guess the best way is to be my Twitter follower, because there I share all the links to each and every stream. For example, right now, if you go to Twitter, Master Ostrovsky, you can find this here below. I mean, this link. You will find the very first tweet, which is pinned to my profile, actually having this schedule of different streams during this coming week. So you can actually plan your week better, taking into account this information, I guess. I hope you learned a lot this time. I hope you enjoyed the show. So it feels like this time my play wasn't that bad. So I actually blundered only once seriously in one of the games, which is also a good sign. So next time will be better, 100%. Wish you all the best. Wish you a great start of this coming working week. And, well, take care. Bye-bye.